Okay, so this is our defensibility check of the Crusader castle, the 90th anniversary castle released by LEGO, that passes cool ability check with flying colors, but defensibility we'll have to see. We're going to be breaking up our review into several videos. This is just our ado scale. The tour of the castle and our thoughts on just the set in general we'll put in other videos. This is just ado.
Now, before we begin, without further ado, I must ask, so you said Crusaders Castle. Why did you say that?
So I said Crusaders Castle because that's the old name that I always knew. They have been called sometimes the Lion Knights, but the Lion Knights are really used so often later that to show you these are the classic Lion Knights, we call them the Crusaders.
Right, thank you. So, off to accessibility. Inaccessible arrow loops. There are several, whether they're obscured by distance, if you have to like hop over a staircase, or if they're obscured by stairs, or in one case the privy, just inaccessible arrow loops.
That is a really fascinating technique, but you can't get to them.
You cannot. You have to go outside to get to the second level of the keep.
So to get from the kitchen to the Great Hall, you have to go outside. To get from the Great Hall to the living quarters, you have to go outside.
Like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
That's dangerous, that's cold.
Right. The turn in the causeway on the entrance to the castle disables carts.
Cannot bring your ox
too
cart
wide.
here.
What
You'd have a tough time getting a horse around that corner.
Right. There's an incomplete moat, as we can see on the left side of the entrance of the castle. It does close off in some grass, so we have to assume the moat is incomplete, so...
Very sad.
Why do you have the moat there? I mean, I don't know.
Where does the water come from?
Exactly.
The water wheel just turns.
The water wheel does just turn. Inaccessible towers. Or I shouldn't say all, most of the tower tops are inaccessible. Very unfortunate.
Very sad.
Further, incomplete circuit. You can't get all the way around.
Yeah, so some of the really early castles, you could walk all the way around the battlements, just amble around, stroll, if you will. This castle, you cannot. There is no strolling.
Concerning the interior, the chimneys.
Very confusing chimneys. They don't match up with the kitchen or Great Hall fireplaces. Those fireplaces, their chimneys are underneath the stairs and do not culminate properly.
Heat the floors, perhaps.
Mayhaps.
During winter, you know? Geothermal heating. So the water for the cistern comes from the wall.
The wall is full of water.
Very confusing. Speaking of confusing things, the doors. There are doors in places where they really shouldn't be, and there's not doors in places where they really should be.
So one example is there's a really nice wooden door on the bedroom, but the Great Hall is open to the marketplace. That's dangerous.
Right. And also...
And your harpsichord's open to the elements.
Oh, man.
And next to a fireplace, it'll be out of tune so quickly.
Yeah. So the Golden Frog. You can't get to the Golden Frog, like... It's behind a ladder and behind a wall. Like, what are you thinking? I mean, come on, really. Yeah. Everybody wants that Golden Frog, and you can't get to it.
It's true.
So that's an easy -5. I mean, let's be reasonable.
Of course.
But we'll say it's a +5 because it's there. Yes. The access of most levels. There's been a lot of clamoring, a lot of positive words talking about, you can get everywhere in the castle. You can't get everywhere, but you get close. There's a lot of stairs. Functional kitchen. And on top of the functional kitchen, it is met with its good friends. The bathroom, also usable.
Oh, yes.
Usable dungeon, accessible dungeon, and the storeroom with coins and amber, allegedly.
The living quarters are pretty impressive. We've got a little play castle in there. We've got desks and beds. It's the best interior we have seen on a LEGO castle by far. There are banners draped in strange places in the rooftops. Some really cool shields that come from the original Yellow Castle. We reviewed that one. The mill functions really well. Fascinating. Storerooms are very nice.
Very thoughtful placement of a lot of things.
Yes. A lot of thought into that.
Except for, chimney.
And the bathroom's on the other end of the castle. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that's also fair. There's also armories.
Armories,
aplenty,
very nice.
Several, which is very, very nice. With accessibility, negatives, we have to score it with a -9. Positives, a +11, giving us a net of 2. On to defensibility.
I mean, that's not bad. A
It's
lot of
not
castles
awful.
sit around 2. And this one is an impressive interior, but there's a lot of problems.
Right.
We're judging modern sets pretty harshly because they leave so little to the imagination that we need to judge what they give us.
Like the lock on the door.
Yeah, if they give us a
If
lot.
it was a bad lock,
Yeah.
judge it. But it worked. And it was accessible. Yeah, so
But there's no locks in this castle.
no locks. Where are they?
I don't know. We've had locks on castles since the beginning.
Maybe he's hanging out with Hobbes.
Lock and Hobbes.
Oh, yes.
Political jokes.
Yes. So, on to defense. Bad crenellation height. They're pretty short. They're like, what?
They're not much taller than we've had crenellations in the past. Lego's always had crenellations just far too short.
Yeah. The bad wall height, though. It's almost like the crenellations are too tall, despite the fact that it is just the walls.
Yeah, some of the walls that have no walkway are crenellated for some reason.
And concerning walls, it's pretty easy to scale them considering how easy it is to get up vines, trees, rocks.
Terrain, you can climb up the hills, and
It's easy to hide in a lot of these places. You want to talk about that blind spot?
there's a ton of corners. There's a massive blind spot, a huge wall, no arrow loop in it whatsoever, no walkway on top of it, 2 turrets on either side that can't really see over all that well. And in the back, there's a corner. There are acute angles to hide behind. You can fit a force of probably 17 who wouldn't be able to be hit by any arrow loops.
Yeah,
It's very disappointing.
Yeah. And on those arrow loops, there's not that many, especially not many accessible ones.
We talked about the impressive living quarters. It has a thatched roof. The palace has a thatched roof. It is made out of wood, plaster, and straw. That's how these buildings would work. It is wood, plaster, and straw. The palace is flammable. That's extremely disappointing.
Yeah.
A slate roof, at least. They probably would have wanted to make the king's living quarters out of stone or something, maybe wood on the inside. But you can see this as an invader, and you can set that on fire pretty easily.
Really easily. Yeah.
Now, fire arrows are definitely overrated and more a fantasy thing, but you could get fire up there. It's only like 20 feet in the air.
Yeah. We also have some outward-facing windows, which are just a problem. They can easily be broken.
You can't use them as arrow loops, but you can have arrows shot in. Big problem.
Right. And excluding the machiculations that actually work, the walls themselves have no machiculations. It's only reserved for the towers. The unstable foundation. There's caves, plants growing, and
Water underneath the castle.
That's pretty unsafe.
Yeah, it would be very easy to undermine and collapse.
Not up to code. Bad drawbridge design. Bad drawbridge design.
So this drawbridge lifts up, and there's a hole at the back of it. So if somebody's on the drawbridge lifts up, they will fall down into the dungeon for sure, but not into a dungeon cell, into the dungeon. I'm grateful that it's a double chained drawbridge. Now that did not appear in the earliest castle sets, but it's a bad design.
Bad drawbridge design.
Doesn't reach all the way up to the top of the arch either.
Bad drawbridge design. For positives, you mentioned that double chained possibility there. We have a great drawbridge in terms of 2 chains.
2 chains. If you cut one, you can still pull up your drawbridge. And they're chains. They're not ropes. That's certain.
Right. And we also have the functioning portcullis, which is very nice.
Oh, but of course.
Partial moat. It deters some enemies.
Yes.
Yeah. The well-guarded secondary entrance with the
There's
great...
a gate. Yeah, a grate across the...
great gate.
Oh yes.
A gate
yes. And machicolations all above that narrow causeway. That's a pretty well-defended little spot.
Yeah.
Gotta defend that bathroom.
We have lots of towers and turrets, although some of those might be taken up by...
There is a...
privy.
Yes, or a bell. There's another corner that I do wish had a turret, but we did get a lot of towers.
We did get a lot. The turn on the ramp makes it, again, difficult for the carts, but also for enemies.
You can't get a battering ram. up to the
Yeah.
drawbridge, which is really nice until you like fill it in with a whole bunch of dirt.
Then we've got the cistern. You've got it. You've got water.
If there is a siege, you have a nice stone bucket of water is what it looks like, and running water at that. There's a faucet coming right out of the wall. I'll believe it. I'll just believe it for now, and you get running water. That's cool.
Wow. So we have a score of a painful -13, a positive score of 8, which leaves us with a net of -5.
Very disappointing defensibility score.
Off to off and civility.
Offensibility,
See what I
right
did
here.
there?
Yeah, very good.
Bathroom in the tower.
That's a terrible, terrible place to put your bathroom.
It's true. It's true.
There are 2 accessible arrow loops and a window in this bathroom. It's a waste of a tower.
So the fact that the bathroom is there and it blocks and 2 arrow loops, boom, -2. And then for positives, we do have the inward-facing arrow loops, and the drawbridge functions as a trapdoor.
The drawbridge is kind of a trap.
Yes, those
Bad trap, but a trap.
Bad drawbridge design. Those -2 points with those positive 2 points leaves us with a net of 0. So as of right now, the total is -3. So let's see if we can perhaps get that any higher.
We'll see. Yeah.
We've got a sufficient garrison.
Yes.
There are 10 Crusaders to man this castle.
Which is amazing. And other minifigures aplenty. So 10, you could hold this castle. That's 1 for every accessible arrow loop, pretty much.
Yeah, and we've got a very wide cast. We've got Falcon Knights. We've got Magisto.
Some
we've
forestmen.
got forestmen, yes. Peasants as well. And then
We have a queen instead of a king. The king is too young to rule, we see. She is ruling as regent in his stead. That is a situation of political instability in 2 ways. First, that your king is too young to rule himself. And second, that there is a queen regent. That is very bad, historically speaking. You are ripe for attack at that point.
and there's only 1 armed man. The rest are all armed women, so that's going to be few armed men, many armed women, another -2.
Yeah, so the number of armed Crusader men is 1. The number of armed Crusader women is 6. Now, a woman versus a man in a fight, in a lot of situations, it really can go either way. But a whole army of women and a whole army of men, as the Falcon Knights may have, it's not going to go well for the Crusaders.
And one last thing. So we were looking at the picture, at the end, and then we realized, oh man, what's that creeping out of the wall?
There's a tree growing out of the wall!
Like, what are you doing?
At the point where the stone is highest and the walls are lowest, they allowed a tree to grow right out of the wall. You can climb that tree and render these massive stone walls the height of a single brick. That's up to your knee. Very disappointing. Now, tell us the scores, Philip.
Yes, so the score is painful, controversial, potentially, and disappointing. We have a total of -6. Now, that is not to say that this is a ugly or unfun, yes, that's a word, set. It's beautiful.
It's very fun. Indefensible. How
That's
indefensible it is indefensible for how new a set is with
Right.
high piece count.
Yeah, high piece count, high price point. So,
0. It
yeah.
gets a 0. This castle, I'm afraid, defensibility check, it does not pass.
Yeah, we're not going to compare -6, -5, oh, which one's worse. No, it's a 0. It's a pass-fail, okay? And it failed.
And the Falcon Knight flag colors are wrong.